Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. Rodney, we're going to be talking Continental Championship Wrestling. It was the end of the year, 1985.
That's right, and they recapped everything that happened. Well, not everything that happened for the year, but the last, I would say, 4 months. They start off with Gordon Solie sitting on the ring, which he looked very uncomfortable sitting on the ring, I have to admit. And he's talking about the year in review, and they start off with the video of Bad to the Bone with Bob Armstrong. Come back with an interview with Ron and Robert Fuller, and they talk about their history with Bob Armstrong as they set up for the big cage match earlier in the year. Robert Fuller had come up with this great idea to sucker Bob Armstrong into a loser-leave Continental match. It worked beautifully. They definitely suckered him in real good. 3-on-1 inside the steel cage. The Armstrong, Scott, and Steve try to get it in the ring. And then all of a sudden, here comes Brad. He cleans house. It's already too late. The Bob Armstrong has to leave the Continental area, and thus here comes the Bullet. They come back. Ron Fuller talks about him being the greatest manager and now the greatest wrestler of all time. Later on, they recap other matches that's been going on in there. Another loser leave, of course, talking about the loser leave match. Also talking about Ron Fuller, the Bullet, hurting Jimmy Golden. Then he hurts Robert Fuller, and then he hurts Ron Fuller inside of a steel cage with the figure four. Obviously getting the figure four over with the Bullet. Then they go back and they have another interview. This time it's the whole Armstrong family along with the Bullet. They recap, of course, like I was talking about, they recap Ron Fuller being hurt. Talk about the Flame getting this mask taken off in a match. And, of course, they had also announced for the first time that Continental Championship Wrestling was seen on WATE TV 6 in Knoxville, and that begins the northern expansion, if you will. Go back, and of course, they have the in-house interview or the local interview with the Bullet, Brad Armstrong, Roberto Soto, and of course, Roberto's still the Continental Heavyweight Champion. They talk about upcoming matches, and of course, the Flame, Robert Fuller, Boomer Lynch, Ron Fuller on the other side answering. Then they have a video of Adrian Street. Then they have another interview with Adrian Street. He talks about Candy Divine. They recap Candy Divine in her first appearance, which was outstanding against Miss Linda. I mean, the crowd goes completely nuts. I don't know if you noticed, but actually Spectator was yanked out of the ring during this same episode. I missed it the first time I watched it, but yeah, there was a Spectator yanked out of the ring. Candy Divine, and of course the production crew. And of course, the next week, a tag match with Norvell Austin and Candy Divine against Adrian Street and Miss Linda. And this is where Adrian Street pile drives Candy Divine. Production crew almost missed this. I don't know if you noticed that, but yeah, they almost missed this. Interview with Norvell Austin. He talks about Candy Divine returning and talks about Adrian Street. And of course, they also talk about been talking about it for the last, it seems like 6 weeks, about Lady Maxine coming. Then, of course, Norvell recaps how it all got started with he and Adrian Street when he played the video of Tiptoe Through the Tulips, which we've all seen with the exotic Adrian Street. And, of course, Adrian and Norvell getting into fight. Another interview with the Armstrongs, Norvell Austin, Adrian Street on upcoming matches coming up. Also, they show matches with Roberto Soto. They talk about Robert Fuller, and they talk about Roy Lee Welch winning the United States Junior Heavyweight Championship, where they show the match where he beats Bill Ash. Another interview with the Bullet. He talks about to the Flame about a loser leave matches, of course, and of course Robert Fuller, Ron, and Boomer. And talking about a mystery man. Comes up with the video of the Nightmares. We are the champions. Of course, the Nightmares now without the mask, and they recap all the situation between them and the Riches. They recapped Tommy Rich being whipped by the Nightmares, where they handcuffed him on the rope and they whipped him. Then they showed the Nightmares in the chicken soup, and then of course they're building up to the hair match, and this is where the Nightmares cut off Gordon Solie's tie. I missed that one before the first time around, but yeah, they cut the tie off of Gordon Solie, preparing for the hair match. Then they talk with Tommy and Johnny Rich, and they also recap their situation with the Nightmares. They talk about Tommy Rich getting his hair cut, and of course the hair versus hair match, and then they go to have an interview in a hair salon. I thought was very good. Anyway, interview again with Tommy and Johnny Rich. Johnny's talking about the Nightmares, and of course Tommy Rich against Ric Flair coming up in the end of the program with an interview with Ric Flair with Tony Schiavone, and talking about Tommy Rich and the upcoming matches for the World Heavyweight Championship. I think that was going to be in Mobile.
I enjoyed this whole look at the wrestling. I thought that was a tremendous look at what was going on at the time. I just and great stuff. But I noticed that Tommy Rich only wanted to take a little bit off the back.
Yes, I noticed that as well. Yeah.
He wasn't going to go. He wasn't going to let nobody take no more off. Just a little bit. Just take a little bit off the top. About like Dusty Rhodes, when Adrian cut his hair.
Just a little snip. That was it.
But a great show. It was a great show. You get to go back and look at everything that they did. No wonder they were drawn in 1985. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I loved it. They did some awful great stuff that year.
Yeah, they did. 1985. Now, and I'm going to tell you, prior to that, they did a bunch of stuff with the Southeastern Championship Wrestling as well, which we didn't get to see any of that, but that was some good stuff as well. Rodney, there was another episode after this. I think you said I had them.
Well, it's not you. It's that YouTube has them reversed. Actually, the show that was prior I think it has the December 28th. Actually, that was the wrong date. And they have the one that we're going to talk about now as December the 21st, 1985, but it came after, I think it was the first of the year. And of course, that was the opening of the match. That was going to be the number one match that we're going to have on that program was Mask versus Mask, the Flame versus the Bullet. Tremendous match. This was awesome. In the end, it's the Flame catching the Bullet in a belly-to-back suplex, and right at the end, as the referee's counting 1, 2, Bullet gets his shoulder off the mat, counts out. The Flame makes a third count with a 3 count, and of course, now the Flame must unmask. Right about that time, Ron Fuller comes out. He said he will not take his mask off. Ron takes his jacket off, throws his hat out, jumps in the ring. The Bullet and Ron go after it. The Flame drops the foreign object in the ring that he'd used earlier in the match. Out from the back comes Mr. Olympia, and I guess this was the big surprise. Mr. Olympia comes out, loads his mask up with the object that was dropped in the ring, and then headbutts the Bullet and then goes after the mask. As Steve comes out, Ron stops him. Steve Armstrong comes out to try to help him. Brad comes out, the Flame stopping him. Ron stopping Steve. I mean, there's a bunch going on here. Finally, Olympia gets the mask off, and Brad Armstrong throws his shirt over the Bullet's face. We couldn't see who it was. Then they're up at the desk. It's Ron Fuller, Mr. Olympia, Boomer Lynch, and the Flame, and they want to replay right now so they could see Bob Armstrong's face, but we couldn't see anything, and that was legitimate. You couldn't see anything. Brad covered the face before we were able to see. Ron Fuller then doubles the bounty to $20,000 for anyone who takes the Bullet's mask off. Then we come back with the interview with the Bullet, Brad, Scott, and Steve. They talk about a loser leave town match, loser leave town in a 6-man tag match. And of course, in the rings, Ron Fuller, the Flame, Mr. Olympia, Robert Fuller, and Boomer Lynch. And they're also talking about that. Match number 2 has 2 super huge men. Dave German against Boomer Lynch. Lynch basically controlled this match throughout. German makes a comeback, if that's what you want to call it, with 2 very weak forearms in the corner. Whips Boomer into the opposite corner, goes in. German runs in. Lynch puts the boot up, and he follows up with a splash. And, of course, Boomer Lynch, the winner in that one. The Bullet and Brad Armstrong in an interview. They're talking about Mr. Olympia. And, of course, Brad Armstrong's talking about his TV title match with Robert Fuller coming up. And then, of course, they have the match. They also have the response from Ron Fuller, Robert Fuller, Mr. Olympia, Boomer Lynch. And, of course, they talk about, and, of course, Mr. Olympia is talking about that he actually collected the bounty. But Gordon Sully, he messed him around on that one. Interview with Norvell Lawson. He talks about the return of Candy Devine and Adrian Streep in a match coming up with he and Miss Linda, or rather Norvell Lawson and Miss Linda. Norvell Lawson, Candy Devine, I'll get it right eventually, against Miss Linda and Adrian Streep. If you saw the match before that, we're ready for round number 2. That was super awesome. Match number 3 is the Continental Heavyweight Championship. Roberto Solo, the champion, defending against the television champion, and Robert Fuller. Fantastic match. Robert was just perfect in this one. In the end, it's Robert sidestepping Soto. Soto's thrown out of the ring. Robert loads the boot, catches Soto as he comes back in, and then for good manager, he stomps him. And, of course, Robert Fuller then goes for the pin. 1, 2, 3, and Robert Fuller is the new Continental Heavyweight Champion. Now he's the double Continental Television Champion, and he's the Continental Heavyweight Champion as well. Interview with the Fullers again. Mr. Olympia, Boomer Lynch, talks about the new champion. And, of course, Robert blames the Bullet for his injury, his new boot that he has. Robert blames the Bullet for that. And, of course, they celebrate him being the new champion. And then right then again, Mr. Olympia blaming Gordon Sully for costing him $10,000. And that was the end of that program. It was incomplete.
Yeah, it was incomplete, but it was a pretty good show. Continental Championship Wrestling, 1985. It started, I think, June. If I'm not, it was June 1985 until now. It's very, very good.
And if you haven't seen these programs, you need to check them out. You're really missing it because and we've compared them at the same time with Jim Crockett Promotions, Mid-South. Actually, Continental had the better show at the time, or in my opinion, they did.
Yes, they did. If you enjoyed this video, give us the big thumbs up. Subscribe to the page if you haven't already. Go one step further, hit that notification bell. And share the video. Until the next video on Continental Championship Wrestling, on behalf of Jack Lord and Rodney West, I'm Brett West. We'll see you in the next video right here on Pro Wrestling Inside Now.